When a diver went above and beyond to rescue a humpback whale, he had no idea how the creature would show its gratitude. That evening, a solitary humpback whale had been swimming close to the coastline of an American city. Initially, it glided peacefully through the waters. However, with poor visibility in the darkness, the whale couldn't see the hazards lying ahead. Suddenly, it became entangled in heavy rope. The creature began to panic. It thrashed and writhed, desperately trying to escape, but its efforts were futile. Hours dragged by, and the whale remained trapped, waiting and fighting, praying for rescue. The following morning, when a team ventured out onto the water, none of them imagined that one of their crew would become a hero. James Moskito, an experienced diver, had recently joined the team for one of their expeditions. Earlier that day, the group received an alert about unusual activity offshore. The information was sketchy, but they were informed it concerned some type of marine animal. Intrigued and worried, they boarded one of their fastest vessels and raced toward the location. Approximately 7 miles from the San Francisco coast, they noticed something stirring in the water. It was a whale. Its head emerged above the surface, and it appeared to be observing them, uncertain whether they posed a danger or offered assistance. The crew quickly discovered the whale was severely entangled in a dozen crab pots. These traps had been set the previous day and had filled up during the night. Combined, they weighed nearly 3,000 pounds, or roughly 1,160 kilograms. That massive weight dragged the whale down like an enormous anchor. Unlike fish, whales cannot remain submerged indefinitely. They're mammals, meaning they must surface regularly to breathe. While this one could still reach air occasionally, it was obviously worn out. The hours of being trapped had drained its strength. The fact that it was still breathing was absolutely miraculous. As James observed the whale struggling to stay afloat, a painful memory struck him. Recently, in another part of the ocean, he'd witnessed something that still troubled him deeply. A blue whale shark, defenseless and injured, had been set upon by sharks. James had watched the entire attack, and the image never left him. Now he understood the peril was equally serious. This was shark season, and numerous predators were known to patrol these coastal waters. The trapped whale wasn't merely stuck, it was bleeding. That wound was releasing blood into the water, and James understood exactly what that signaled. There was a blood slick extending over a mile, James noted. More than enough for the great whites to detect. He didn't need to deliberate. If the whale was going to make it, he had to move quickly. There was only one option remaining. James knew precisely what needed to be done: dive into the water and free the whale. He rapidly geared up, putting on his diving equipment with expert efficiency. As he prepared, he voiced his thoughts aloud, explaining what was running through his head. The other divers paid close attention. They had faith in James, not only because he was competent, but because he possessed a composed, reliable demeanor. Even when stressed, he remained concentrated. James gazed into the deep blue ocean, completely aware that a shark might be lurking nearby. "I wasn't exactly terrified," he later recalled, "but it was certainly on my mind that something larger could be out there." Another person in this situation might have hesitated or retreated, but not James. Rather than dwelling on potential problems, he focused on the positive outcome, the instant when the whale would finally swim free. Just before he entered the water, James approached one of the crew members and quietly warned them about the shark threat. He could manage it, but he wasn't certain if the others were mentally prepared. So he instructed them to remain vigilant, and if a great white did show up, not to turn away. According to James, maintaining direct eye contact with a shark can prevent it from viewing you as potential food. James took one final look around the water surrounding the boat, nothing concerning yet. Then he looked back at the whale, no disturbance in the waves around it, just calm. He adjusted his mask, confident and determined. 1 second he was standing with the team, and the next, he was underwater. Within moments, the remaining divers followed him in. They swam toward the humpback, with James taking the lead. As he approached, he observed the whale's head remaining motionless above the surface. Its eyes were fixed on him. The whale wasn't moving significantly, but James could sense it watching him, uncertain of what to anticipate. There was something in its gaze, exhausted, sorrowful, and cautious. James could tell that this animal understood it was in trouble. It was intelligent enough to grasp what was occurring, and it wasn't sure whether the humans had come to help or harm it. To reassure the whale, James slowly extended his hand and touched its head. He spoke softly, "I'm here to rescue you. I won't cause you any pain." The rope had cut deeply into the whale's flesh. No surprise it couldn't break free by itself. The harder it had struggled, the deeper the ropes had sliced. It bore rope wounds, raw and agonizing, where the lines had carved in. Initially, when it first became tangled, the whale must have fought frantically, but that only worsened the situation. The more it battled, the more the traps coiled around it. By this point, it was so thoroughly entangled that it was difficult to determine where one line ended and another started. Some of the trap lines extended over a mile in length. Understanding the gravity of the circumstances, James pulled out his knife and started cutting. The rope was heavy and multi-layered, but he worked swiftly and precisely. Each strand he severed brought the whale one step closer to freedom. The other divers did whatever they could to assist James, taking extra care not to inflict additional harm on the already injured whale. Periodically, James would quickly turn around to scan for any indication of sharks. He reminded the others to stay alert, and once he was confident they were paying attention, he returned to cutting the twisted ropes. He maintained morale by encouraging his teammates as they collaborated. At last, the final section of rope broke away. The instant it snapped free, the whale didn't hesitate. It plunged deep beneath the surface. The divers all erupted in celebration and congratulated one another. Everything had proceeded perfectly, and they felt both relieved and proud. James, in particular, had earned their respect. They discussed how people would soon learn about his heroic act. After all, it's not often that a diver rescues an enormous whale. But the greatest surprise wasn't James' actions. It was the whale's response. Just minutes after gaining its freedom, the humpback returned right to the exact same location. And more than that, it swam directly toward James. The rest of the team had already gotten back into the boat and were observing from overhead. But James remained in the water. He looked down and saw the massive form rising toward him. His breathing stopped for an instant. The sight was extraordinary, something he would never forget. As the whale surfaced, it gently bumped against James. Then it began swimming around him, almost like it was playing, similar to a dog greeting someone it loved. For several minutes, the whale moved around James in graceful, leisurely figure-8 pattern. The divers in the boat watched in wonder. None of them had ever witnessed anything comparable. A wild creature, especially one this enormous, displaying such affection. It seemed unbelievable, but it was happening. For James, the experience felt surreal, so vivid, so moving. He mentioned later that if he shut his eyes, he could still picture that happy whale, as clear as if it were right there. What are your thoughts on James' courage? Let me know in the comments section. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more true life stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.